In this video, I'm going to show you how to build an enterprise architecture agent that uses Postman and OpenAI's agent builder to create an agent that reviews an app idea submitted by a developer in a team, confirms availability of approved APIs and services and best practices, and then defines a high-level architecture to return that back to the developer so they can start building. Let's just jump straight in. Now, if you caught one of my recent videos, I built a reliable AI agent. I'll link it to the top if you didn't see it before, but that agent was relying on AWS services and API endpoints defined inside Postman. Now I'm inside Postman here, and I'm looking at these cloud infrastructure resources again. I can go and create an EC2 instance for a server, RDS database, or S3 buckets on storage, and a few other things. I wanted to take that same collection of API services and use those as the approved services within this IT organization that our agent is actually going to build upon. In addition to those approved API services that are governed within Postman, our architecture team has defined a set of best practices. In this instance, what we're looking at here is a markdown file of React application best practices. So our organization is standardized on React for the front end. They've gone ahead and created these best practices that decide on API layers, define what should be reusable components, things like TypeScript, everything like that. These two things together are all the assets that my agent needs to know about as context and be available to create a well-designed, well-governed and approved IT service. Let's jump in and start building our agent. I've gone ahead and created a new agent template in Agent Builder. First thing I've done is I've dropped in this start node. And this start node is effectively that first chat or prompt interface that you're going to type in the type of app you want. Now, once you've entered your information there, it gets bound to a variable called input as text. So this is your input text, and you can reuse that throughout your agents. Right now, we don't do too much with our agent here. Next, what I've done is I've gone ahead and added a guardrail. I'm going to connect the guardrail here. Now, in this instance, let's have a look up in the right-hand side here. What the guardrail does is it allows me to find policies that are important to, say, an organization or whatever the agent is using. In our instance, if I look at this custom prompt check, let me go in and have a look. You can see that I've set the agent to act as a security infrastructure support person. So they want to look at that input prompt that the developer first put in, make sure there's no API keys, passwords, or confidential information that's in there. I've also gone and checked this not safe for work text. So I don't want someone to start creating an app or an agent that has racist or sexist comments, for instance. I can do that via this guardrail. The next thing that I want to do is I want to actually connect in the Postman MCP server. So I've gone and added another agent here. I'll click on this agent. And if you look over the side here, there's a few things going on. The first thing I've done is I've connected Postman MCP. This is the MCP service that's available, and I can select whatever tools that I want available to my agent. So in this instance, I just want to get a collection and the collection results that are available inside my workspace so I can interrogate those APIs and see what's available for a developer. Once I've gone and connected this tool, I need to give the agent a prompt to describe what I want it to do with that tool. So if we look inside here, I'm going to use the Postman MCP tool called getCollections to return valid JSON object representing the tools. Here's my tool call itself. This is my workspace ID. I need to provide that. Now I can do it directly in here, or I could bind it as a state variable as well. Once I have this information here, I want to loop through all those collections and look for anything that would actually solve that input prompt that I provided. So we'll go back to this prompt in a little bit, but what I'm doing is I'm actually asking the agent, say, with the data that you got back from the Postman MCP, is there something that suits the requirements and the needs? And then if there is, go and get that actual collection itself. So for our instance, it's going to be those approved API services for AWS and that cloud infrastructure collection. Once I have that, I'll get a response back from the agent that describes the APIs and the services that are available and should conform to what is required for the developer to build their application. Now we've gone ahead and added another agent node here, and you can think of these agent nodes as effectively the next step in your conversation with the agent. We're defining a prompt and provide information based on the data or the payload that was provided by the last step. So in that instance, our last step was actually the get API response. If we have a look at the prompt that I've gone ahead and created, this Postman get API output object, that's the response of the Postman MCP with that collection that we want. Once we have that information, I'm giving my agent a clear set of instructions on what to do with that information. So using the API endpoints found in the collection, create a high-level architecture for a React.js application that uses Postman APIs in the backend to satisfy the requirements. I've been very clear to say, don't use anything that is not related to the input text to start with. And then I always want to make sure that as I go through and the agent returns that high-level architecture, it's adding a green check mark to say it's approved by the architecture team and a green check mark to any of those API endpoints that are there. Now, if my prompt, that initial prompt that the developer added, included things that aren't available with inside my service infrastructure yet, I still want them to be included inside that high-level architecture. Let's say I had image manipulation. We don't support that right now, but I want to include it as part of the architectural design. Print that out, but put an X beside it. And then we can start talking to, say, the IT architecture team to maybe add more services inside Postman and have them approved. So we'll go through this information. We've given our prompt clear instructions on what we want the agent to do. But one thing that I've also done here as well, if you notice down the tools, what I've done is I've actually connected a vector store. And this vector store, it's using OpenAI's file storage, but I've uploaded those React best practices into that vector store. So when it goes to create that high-level architecture, it's going to refer to those best practices and return those as it creates the definition of the architecture. Now, as a result of that last prompt, I now have a defined high-level architecture that the agent has created for me. I want to do one last scan using the guardrails that I define in my organization to ensure that everything is accurate. So if you'll see here, I'm using this guardrail node again. I've used that same security infrastructure support person to make sure that we didn't introduce any security information or confidential keys using the same prompt that I used before. But in this instance as well, I'm also using a hallucination check. If you remember, what I said is I want to use the approved architectures that are in that vector file store. So where we have that React best practices, I want to make sure that my agent didn't hallucinate and provide different instructions. So here I can say check against the custom prompt as well as any hallucinations to make sure the output is accurate. Now, the very last thing that we need to do is add an agent step that will print out the output. This agent doesn't do anything for us right now, but we could foreseeably add a lot more information on top of it. For instance, let's say I had questions, or let's say I wanted to actually get the agent to start implementing the app itself. Also notice in this instance, I've wired everything to a pass and I haven't really managed or handled the failed yet, but I could do a failed via an agent and return a prompt that says this is failed, contact IT support or IT architecture to make sure that it works. Now that I have everything designed and coded, it's time to actually test it. So I'm going to go click and add a prompt. Let's create something simple and fun, like I want to create a dog breed classifier app with storage and a web page. Pretty simple, pretty high level, and let's see what the approved architecture agent actually comes back with. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, it's going through each of the stages. It already passed the sensitive information guardrail. It's now going to Postman to look for APIs that are available inside my organization and adheres to the prompt that I asked for. So in particular, storage. I already see it's focusing on AWS. It's gone ahead, found what is needed, reasoning the rest of the results to create a high-level architecture and best practices that conform to what's available inside my organization. Going ahead and creating and printing all of these here. If you notice here, if I start scrolling through, I start to see green ticks where things are available. So it's recommended React, which is right. That's what we've defined in our organization. You'll also notice here on the left, it's comparing that last guardrail about against the hallucinations to make sure what comes through is accurate and correct. Now for our hosting, it's gone ahead and said, okay, there's things available inside my Postman instance that are approved by the enterprise architecture team. Hosting with an S3 bucket gets a tick. Creating storage in React, uploading to the S3 bucket, they're all green ticks. Few things that are red, something like the dog breed classification and some of the image support. We don't have that in our service at the moment, but what the agent is actually doing is it's coming back to recommend to talk to the enterprise architecture team to onboard the breed classification APIs, make it reviewed, and get it available with inside the organization. So next time we run it, we'll get a lot more green ticks. It's gone all the way through, created all these ticks, and given me a very clear, specific guideline of what I need to do and what's approved and allowed inside my organization. So if we go to the very end here, we can see the actual summary. It's looked at the architecture approved from the Postman Cloud Infrastructure Resources collection, created a really nice clean layout of what I need to build my application. This is pretty cool. So there you have it. In a few short minutes, I showed you how to build an architecture review agent using OpenAI's Agent Builder as well as Postman's API services for managing and governing what is available and provided inside your organization to create that agent recommendation for high-level architecture for your developers. Now, of course, I didn't build out the entire application. The next thing that I might want to do is allow the agent to actually build it for you, and I can completely do that with inside Agent Builder and the Postman APIs. But this should give you a good start on how to create well-governed and managed services using Postman and OpenAI. See you on the next one.